Majority Report with Sam Seder.
The destiny of America is always safer in the hands of the people than in the conference rooms of any elite.
Sam Seder.
They are unanimous in their hate for me, and I welcome their hatred.
We must guard against the acquisition of unwarranted influence, whether sought or unsought, by the military-industrial complex.
The Majority Report with Sam Seder.
And I get the feeling you've been cheated.
It is Wednesday, November 8th, 2023. My name is Sam Seder. This is the 5-time award-winning Majority Report. We are broadcasting live steps from the industrially ravaged Gowanus Canal in the heartland of America, downtown Brooklyn, USA. On the program today, Aaron Kleinman, Director of Research for the States Project at Future Now. On a very good election day for Democrats yesterday, and really more so for abortion rights. Then Brittany Dorris, a 5th grade teacher in Portland, Oregon, on the picket lines as Portland teachers start their 4th or 5th day, 6th day of a strike there. Also on the program today, as I mentioned, Ohio votes resoundingly for a constitutional right to abortion and to legal weed. Pennsylvania elects a Democrat to the Supreme Court, making a 5-2 majority in that very keyest of key swing states. The Virginia Senate stays Democrat. The Virginia House flips to Democrat as Glenn Youngkin's rising star becomes a MAGA supernova. Moms for Liberty, widely rejected across Iowa. Bashir crushes in Kentucky on the wave of abortion rights. Rashida Tlaib censured for being Palestinian while in Congress. The G7 calls for a humanitarian pause as Palestinian civilians continue to die. U.S. diplomats slam U.S.-Israel policy. Ivanka Trump found a babysitter and is on the witness stand today in New York. And a 4-second preview of tonight's debate. All that and more on today's Majority Report.
I got your 4-second preview. No Doug Burgum. ...
There you go. Matt is back, folks. We've got a lot of hankies in the office. Matt,
pretty sure it was just allergies and a little bit of hangover for me yesterday.
Emma is off. Therefore, I am contractually allowed to say today is Hump Day, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the program. Really a good news yesterday. The only bad news, and I'll start off with it, from my perspective. There may be other races that, but in terms of like anything that I would headline that I find really a bummer is the Pine Tree Power Initiative in Maine failed. They were outspent. This was again to have the state of Maine operate its own power delivery. And they were outspent. I don't even know if you can calculate like double digits to 1 by these power companies. It really is something that we need in this country. There is no reason for us to have these middlemen in particularly, the rationalization is there. It is when we regulate these companies so heavily and they have no competition, there couldn't be a better indication of something that this is what the state or the country should be doing.
And have done before.
And have done, of course. Anywhere where there's a monopoly or has been for an extended period of time, I know that like in some places are opening up with fiber versus cable. It is a good indication that like this is something that obviously you don't need competition for. I'm not sure in which areas you need competition, but this is clearly, we don't even need to do a hypothetical, but that's the only dark spot on things, as it were. And in the meantime, we had some very good news across the board in terms of, we don't know exactly in terms of the numbers. We'll get more data as we go in the coming days and weeks in terms of like turnout and how it applies in a broad sense. But broadly speaking, people seemed very energized by one issue in particular. And so much so that even Sean Hannity realizes it.
And this is what happens when you go for 50 years, an unelected group of Supreme Court justices take this vitally important issue out of voters' hands and make the, rule by fiat in Washington. And then when we, thankfully get it returned to the states and returned to voters, it's a difficult issue, and we're working through it. This is the third election. It's going to be difficult, and it's going to be awkward, and everybody's kind of got to try to find their voice on it. Democrats demagogue the issue to very effectively.
They're trying to scare, Democrats are trying to scare women into thinking Republicans don't want abortion legal under any circumstances. And I go back to Pennsylvania 2022. The Republican candidate for governor, if I remember correctly, no exceptions for rape, incest, or the mother's life, and lost to a non-incumbent gubernatorial candidate, Democratic candidate, by a margin.
Pause it for 1 second. I just want to see if I just understand what Sean Hannity is saying. Democrats want people to believe that Republicans don't want to allow abortions in any circumstance, and then he immediately pivots to talk about a Republican candidate who did not want to allow abortions in any circumstance. I mean, it is the case that Republicans don't want abortions to exist in any circumstance. In fact, we talked about yesterday how the speaker of the Republican Speaker of the House voted against birth control. And so it goes further than that. Now, it's true that in certain circumstances, they try and finesse this to see if there's some magic formula where they can take away an individual right from half of the population, roughly, and and arguably everyone, right? I mean, because couples often make this decision together, but they finesse it so that they can take away parts of that right. And now they're whining because their position is completely unpopular with the American people. And I love how it was 50 years of fiat, and then it was, it's no longer fiat. That you can overturn a 50-year precedent. I mean, if you want to talk about something that is definition of fiat, it is a judiciary that has no respect for settled precedent. But continue.
And I go back to Pennsylvania 2022. The Republican candidate for governor, if I remember correctly, no exceptions for rape, incest, or the mother's life, and lost to a non-incumbent gubernatorial candidate, Democratic candidate, by a margin that was not seen since the 1940s. So I have to believe that is an indication that the women in America, suburban moms, want it probably legal and rare and probably earlier than, at the point of viability.
Well, I mean, I think just about everybody believes that it should be slightly earlier than the point of viability. I mean, I think that's in fact what the standing law was.
I think the doctors are on that.
But the Republicans are recognizing they have a problem to a certain extent. They also have a problem with their insistence that normal people have a problem with the existence of trans people. We will get into that more. The millions of dollars that Republicans seem hell-bent on trying to prove that the American public is afraid or has an issue with, or whatever it is, with trans people. We'll also say that on a local level, in terms of school boards and this and that, people tend to not want things like history to be banned, books to be banned, pride flags to be banned. So Moms of Liberty, also big losers yesterday. We'll go through all of this in part with Aaron Kleinman, and then over the course of the rest of the program, and then I would imagine over the course of the next couple of days. But first, oh God, I can't believe it. We're doing the debate coverage tonight. It is the perfect opportunity, and I've got 5 bottles sitting in my apartment right now of Z-Biotics, because when we cover the Republican debates, we tend to have a couple of drinks. I mean, not so many that we're, fall down. We drink, I think we drink responsibly, but the beauty of Z-Biotics is it is a pre-alcohol probiotic, the world's first genetically engineered probiotic, incidentally. And what it basically does is it gets rid of rough mornings the night after you do a little bit of drinking. And here's how it works. Before you drink a bottle of the Z-Biotics, a little tiny, tiny bottle. And then you drink responsibly, try and get a good night's sleep. And where normally when you drink, what gives you a tough next day is a byproduct I should say that is a toxic byproduct that gets developed in your gut after you drink. So it's this byproduct and not dehydration that leaves you feeling lousy the next day. Z-Biotics pre-alcohol probiotic produces an enzyme, and it breaks this byproduct down in your gut. It's sort of designed to act like your liver, but in your gut where you need it the most. So you drink Z-Biotics before drinking. I don't know how I'm going to do this. Unless maybe Emma has some at home and she can bring some in, and I will trade her a bottle that I have at home. But you drink it before you drink alcohol. Drink responsibly, get a good night's sleep, and then the next morning you could do, let's say, a podcast, or you could do your exercises, or you could do your errands. Go to zbiotics.com/majority. Get 15% off your first order when you use majority at checkout. I've used this in multiple circumstances. My biggest problem is that sometimes I forget. But it's great. You can also sign up for a subscription using my code so you can stay prepared no matter the time or the occasion. That's very helpful so you don't run out. Z-Biotics is backed with a 100% money-back guarantee. So if you're unsatisfied for any reason, they'll refund your money, no questions asked. Remember, head to zbiotics.com/majority. Use the code majority at checkout for 15% off. Thanks, Z-Biotic, for sponsoring this episode and for making several episodes in the past possible, because I was able to rebound the next morning. All right, we're going to take a quick break. When we come back, Aaron Kleinman. We are back. Sam Seder on the Majority Report. Emma is off for the day. Joining us now, Aaron Kleinman, Director of Research for the States Project at Future Now, from a hidden location where we are holding him hostage, as you can see. Aaron, welcome back to the show.
If people want to know what books I'm reading, they can just ask me. You know, that's
It's a good thing that we don't have that. What is that? Like that Zoom Raider? What was there was
Room Raider?
Room Raider.
The Zoom Raider guy. You know, that guy is a big old fraud.
Well, I don't know what that means. Like, I mean, well, how could that be? What does that mean?
This guy, Claude Taylor, he was like, he changed the toner at the Clinton White House or something. And he parlayed that into a career scamming people online, saying that he's going to give money to candidates and not.
Oh, geez, really? I had no idea about that.
Yeah.
Oh, all right. I thought you were saying he was a fraud when it came to room rating, and I'm like,
well,
do you really need a degree for that? Or
yeah.
Okay. All right. So we're all in a good mood today in terms of that yesterday's election. There's a lot of other stuff that's happening in the world for that give us reasons not to be in a particularly good mood. But let's try and stay in this place for a moment. Big night last night. Okay, let's just start with this. We can go through, I mean, in Kentucky, Beshear gets reelected. In Ohio, abortion enshrined into the Constitution. Virginia, Democrats actually pick up a house. Pennsylvania, pick up a seat on the Supreme Court, lock it in, 5-2. Virginia, like I say, really helpful. And I mean, there's more. What was the biggest surprise? Let's start with that for you. What was the biggest surprise of the night?
The biggest surprise for me was honestly how it kind of went how I thought it would. They're actually like, I'm like, it never kind of goes the way that I think it will, but going in, we were pretty confident that we, like, because we were mostly focused on Virginia, we were pretty confident that we would, win the legislature there, but that would be close. And if you look at the results in the Senate, the tipping point seat for control of the Senate, which right now we have a 1-seat majority there, it was won by about 2,000 votes. In the House, the tipping point control for the House was about 800 votes. Very, very close. But the good news is right now we have enough seats to not only stop the right wing in Virginia, but actually, start passing some laws that could really help the people of that state.
And my understanding too, was this in Virginia? I think it was that there was some primaries in some Democratic seats that we sort of like upgraded. Was it Virginia I'm thinking of now?
Yeah, no. In Virginia, you had a totally new legislative maps because They have the odd year elections in the sense that weren't ready for the 2021 election. And so just because you had like a lot of new maps, a lot of incumbents were on new turf. And so it's actually a very young Senate that's coming in. I think only like half of the majority caucus has like been in the Senate before. So there's a lot of new blood coming in Virginia, which is exciting because, now that we have majorities in both chambers, again, we can start passing some really good laws around, clean air, protecting democracy, protecting choice. You have a right-wing governor, but he said that he's a moderate, and he wears these vests that make people think he's a moderate. And now he can actually take a step beyond just vest wearing, and he can actually sign some laws that are very popular. And show people, wow, I want to pass all these. I'm a Republican, but I'm going to sign all these popular bills that the General Assembly is sending to me. So more than just a vest, I'm a real moderate. Maybe he can do that. Let's get it done.
Aaron, I just want to note for folks who are not familiar with you, that there's a lot of sarcasm in your voice.
There are some things, like lowering the cost of prescription drugs. 75% of people support this stuff.
Let's talk about Youngkin since we're at Virginia, okay? Because we've been told that Youngkin is the sort of like the prototype of the post-Trump Republican, where, he's offering a 15-week ban on abortions, which of course is still like an infringement upon people's on a right that people had for 50 years in this country. He has been going around talking about CRT and trans people. He dumped $500,000 of his campaign war chest into the race where Danica Rome became Virginia's first, and she had been, I think, Virginia's first transgender assembly member, and is now Virginia's first transgender senator, state senator, and that race didn't even seem to be terribly competitive. You'd have a better sense of that than I. But I mean, this guy embodies all of the MAGA stuff without calling himself MAGA. And now he's going to have to he's going to have to get rid of the vest.
Well, actually, the Danica Rome race, at the last minute they came in and ran a pretty vulgar, gutter, anti-trans campaign against her. It ended up being a closer race than we anticipated. It actually was the tipping point seat for Senate control. I think right now, because, and again, votes are still coming in Virginia. None of the numbers are final yet. I think she's up by around 3-4% right now. And that was actually the closest race that Democrats are ahead in right now. But thankfully, again, and, there were a lot of people there, including groups like us in that district. We knew that they would make a run at her. And, thankfully, we were able to kind of help, marshal some resources and make sure that she kind of had a firewall in place. We knew that at the last minute, maybe they would try something like this. And she ended up winning. And, the voters of Virginia rejected that 15-week abortion ban that he was saying was a moderate compromise. And so, he knows now that's not what people want. Maybe now he can get to work actually, trying to sign bills passed by the legislature that are very popular and show people that, hey, maybe, to me, that seems pretty moderate to me.
Okay. But do you think he's going to do that? Or do you think, because if he does that, he's done with politics after Virginia, unless he just wants to go into lobbying or something?
Well, I don't know. I keep hearing that Republicans are going to be a working class, cross-racial coalition after this. And what better way to show that than by signing some popular laws? The voters have spoken. That's what they want. So we should listen to the voters.
All right, fair enough. I really appreciate your hopeful perspective on Glenn Youngkin's future. All right, let's go to Ohio, obviously, where, this is the amazing thing. Abortion plays a big role in Ohio tonight. It plays a big role in Kentucky. It plays a big role in Virginia. It plays a big role in Pennsylvania. It may have played big roles in other places around the country as well. But this is these were big sort of high profile type of races. Let's talk about Kentucky. I mean, Bashir, I heard a clip on the AP News. I listened to that in the morning, and it was Bashir in Kentucky, and he gets up there and he says, and now we're going to fully fund education and our educators in this country. And then I heard a clip of Reeves in Mississippi, and his clip was, they said I couldn't do it and I did it, or something like that. I mean, like there is that juxtaposition where you have Democrats who are running on policies and Republicans who are running against self-agreement or on self-agreement was stark. But tell us about Kentucky. Yeah,
and again, Kentucky, you can see where a governor who's running on really, not just, abortion did play a big role in that race. He had some pretty stark ads kind of showing kind of just how extreme his opponent was. But also, again, running on quality of life, running on improving people's lives, stuff that makes a difference in people's lives. That's the winning combo. And a Democrat winning the governorship in a state like Kentucky shows you, Bashir certainly has, a family name and political talents that are difficult for a lot of people there to replicate, but it shows you that you can win if you focus on those things. And again, standing up for the right to choose as well. So yeah, and I think he won by even a bit more than anticipated as well. So it was a, pretty solid victory there, especially because a lot of people thought he only won in 2019 because he was running against someone who pretty much alienated everyone in the state. But he showed that, if you're willing to kind of just try to govern with people's lives in mind, you can keep winning elections.
Let's talk about Pennsylvania. This is also a big deal, and this is going to be a big deal. I mean, put it in context to us. Is this going to make a difference in terms of like the House has already been, the state Supreme Court has already sort of like fixed the massive gerrymandering in the House.
Yeah.
Are we ever going to see it in the state with the state the state House?
Well, I mean, again, we were one of the few national groups in 2022 who was in Pennsylvania in a big way trying to flip it. And, we now hold the Pennsylvania House by one seat. So that helps. And, next up, we have to try to flip the state Senate, which is a little more daunting. But yeah, as you noted, in Pennsylvania, the state Supreme Court has a big say in redistricting, especially state legislative redistricting. So actually in 2025, there will be 3 Democratic seats up for retention. And so in 2025, if Democrats can hold those 3 seats, or maybe only 2 of those 3, but ideally all 3, they could actually pretty much ensure that they would have a Supreme Court that would stand for fair districts in the next redistricting round. So winning the race last night too was huge to help set that up as well. So that was really good. Again, not just on choice, but also on just democracy. Huge.
Big issue there. And all right, let's go to Ohio. I mean, this is we've been talking about this for quite some time, and we saw a preview of this over the summer, I guess it was, on question 1 at that time, which was, is it legit for Ohio to have a referendum on the Constitution that involves, a simple majority? And that resoundingly was maintained. Give us a sense of like the implications of this. I mean, is there going to be any implications beyond this? Obviously, it's so weird. You got a state that enshrines constitutional right to abortion and to recreational marijuana and is going to vote for a Republican presidential candidate.
I mean, I think that shows that there's work to be done, and kind of, all those voters who are voting for, again, to keep, abortion legal in the state of Ohio should be gettable, and they're not getting all of them. And so that shows, hey, there's work to be done. And, I think a lot of what we do is making sure that we can meet voters, that state legislative candidates can meet voters where they are. And so that's why we try to, help fund tactics that have been proven to work. Things like, actually going door to door, things like making sure that your ads are tested. And so just kind of to try to improve these margins, because in Virginia, it had been, for decades, Democrats had never done better than the previous gubernatorial nominee in state legislative elections. We were fighting history there.
Explain that
Virginia,
dynamic.
So in Virginia, you have the gubernatorial election is kind of the year after the presidential, and then the state legislative is the year before the presidential. So, and for the past, few decades, Democrats had never done better than their previous gubernatorial nominee in state legislative election. So we were fighting history there, just because it's a relatively conservative electorate that comes out in odd years. And so, when you're thinking about, well, how do you counteract that? There are things that have been proven to work. And so I think if you look at the results in a state like Ohio, it's, hey, the people are with you on the issues, and you need to figure out how to meet them where they are, how to win them over to you. And, that's what we're trying to do. And I think it's possible. So it just, you see your issues doing well, and it's like, that's just proof that you got to keep fighting.
What's your sense? I don't know how much you paid attention to what was going on in Iowa when it comes from Moms for Liberty. As far as I can tell, there were 13 Moms for Liberty endorsed candidates in Iowa in the 2023 school board races. Not all of them, obviously, yesterday. Out of 13, only one won in a school district, and it was a tiny school district with fewer than 1,000 students. What is that telling you in terms about this culture war that the Republicans insist should be waged? And I think some of the sort of centrist popularists out there who say I don't know, maybe we should abandon the idea of rights for trans people, or the idea of studying history and the Civil War in school.
So Sam, you and I, we both have kids, and so I think you and I both understand that schools are amazing. They're a place you send your kid there, you can do your job, you get back from your job, your kid gets home from school, they're smarter. It's a miracle. And I think parents across the country realize, oh my God, schools, they're amazing. I want my kid to have good schools. And Moms for Liberty is basically running on a platform of, we hate schools. And so I don't think that's a very good, I think that parents by and large are, you certainly want your schools to be good, and maybe you want them to be better. But if you have kind of a platform that is inherently antagonistic toward the role of public education in society, people are not going to like it. So, across the country, candidates, should be talking about how they want kids to be able to go to good public schools. And we can saw that in Iowa. We saw it in Pennsylvania, that far right culture war. Parents can tell when you're just kind of when you're not really interested in the quality of schools, and you're just interested in fighting nonsense culture war, and they're going to reject it. So let that be known. It worked.
And we saw a similar thing too in it seems to me in Virginia, that same dynamic, right? Wasn't it Justice Scalia's daughter was running?
She lost the school board race. And they tried to, the far right tried to make school culture war thing a wedge issue in the Northern Virginia suburbs to win legislative seats, and didn't work. They lost the races where they tried to make that a big issue. The bottom line is people like public schools. They want them to be good. If they don't trust you to support public schools and make them good, then they'll throw you out. And running on banning books, running on singling out, children who, singling out trans children, that's not showing parents you care about schools. It shows them that you care about kids as political footballs. They're going to reject that.
Let's talk New Jersey. There was some surprises in New Jersey. I mean, I'm just trying to get a sense of what we can glean from this going forward, outside of it being broadly speaking, just a good night for Democrats.
Well, one notable thing out of New Jersey is that candidates in the Philadelphia media, Philadelphia TV market did better than candidates in the New York TV market. And this is the same dynamic that we saw in 2022 when candidates in the New York media market did significantly worse than candidates in other media markets. And I think a lot of it comes from Eric Adams, frankly, talking about how awful New York is. And people who see news coverage of New York are just turning, and it remains an issue that needs to be fixed, because if you look at 2024, there are a lot of important, congressional and legislative districts in the New York media market that need to be won. So I think something needs to get done, something needs to change, because that is, what's going on. And if you look at the Republican successes from last night, there aren't that many, but in Long Island, they did well. And I think it remains an issue.
So how does one deal with that? Because it feels like, I mean, is New York one of those states that's going to have a constitutional amendment for abortion rights?
I'm not sure where they are on that, to tell you the truth, but we'll see. I mean, I think in general, I think you have to be mindful of the fact that the mayor is a bit of a problem right now.
I mean, I'm mindful of it. What do I do about it?
I'm not really sure what else to do about it. I think you just kind of hope that the SDNY Public Integrity Unit does their job.
Exactly. How many investigations can be going on around Eric Adams without? I mean, the only thing it seems to have done is cut his Turkish film career short. That's the only thing. We played a clip of him in a Turkish film the other day. And I guess on some level, my hope is that the abortion issue becomes an issue in the context of New York, because that seems to drive turnout across the country, regardless of what the scenario is. Obviously, it's less pressing in New York because no one ever anticipates a threat to the right for a person to choose to have an abortion in this state. But it would be a good reminder, I guess. Let's just lastly, do we have any sense of turnout demographics? Because one of the things that we've seen, at least in the polling with Biden, is that he has lost a lot of support from African Americans. Whether one believes that or not, the question becomes have African Americans suddenly decided, Black people decided that the Republican Party is sort of it's better to vote for them in terms of their interests, to the extent that those interests diverge from anybody else's interests. But do we have a sense?
So it's still really early, and we haven't done the deep dive there. But from looking at the precinct data from last night in Virginia, there were not issues with Black. I think Democrats got good numbers from Black voters overall, from my initial cut at it. And again, we're still counting votes, so it's even hard to say beyond that. But this wasn't a result you would expect if you told me that Black voters weren't turning out, or Black voters were voting Republican in higher numbers than before. I didn't see anything suggesting that last night, but we're waiting on all the results to come in, so we might have a better idea in a few months. But
same question with youth. I saw some numbers, I don't know how verified they were, that college students in Pennsylvania came out voting in double the rate that they had a couple of years ago.
So in Virginia, actually, there were a couple of districts with big colleges in them, and we saw. So in Virginia, the way it works is if you're not registered, you can actually register on that day at basically the campus polling place, and you cast a provisional ballot, and they have to verify it. Those haven't been counted yet, so we're waiting on it. But we looking at some of the turnout there, it does seem like there was pretty decent turnout on college campuses, and that's really all because of just the way demographics work. That's kind of the best we can do for figuring out how young voters did at this point. But young voters certainly seem to come out in Virginia. I don't know the extent of the numbers. We'll have a better idea in a little while. But again, it wasn't a result that you would get if youth turnout had collapsed.
Interesting. Well, I guess we'll see. My daughter sent me a picture of her I voted sticker. It's not a great sort of data point, because it's my daughter, I guess, and she knows that I would be upset if she
has a high turnout score, I'm guessing.
She has a high turnout score for voting, but I don't know. It's rather encouraging. Aaron Kleinman, anything else that you think we should note?
Just note those margins in Virginia that we won by are slim. It's an exciting result, but we got, no letting up here. In 2022, we won very slim margins in states like Michigan, Minnesota, Pennsylvania. In 2024, we got to defend those. In 2024, we got to try to flip Arizona too. We got to be looking for opportunities across the country, but it's looking like it's going to be close again. So I'm excited. I can take a little breather, but 2024 is going to be a big battle, and we're going to start getting ready for it today.
Well, Aaron Kleinman, Director of Research at the States Project of Future Now. I know you guys are doing great work, and I know that every penny that gets donated to you guys does not go into office furniture or or accoutrements. It all goes into the work that you're doing. I think that's pretty obvious.
This is a threadbare shirt, folks. It all goes out the door.
Where do you get a chair that squeaks like that? Is there some place that you go to buy them?
The dump. I got
the dump,
Is there something Is there like some place in the mall called Squeaks or something like that?
Chicken coop behind you.
Okay. Well, really appreciate you coming on.
All my stuff comes from the dump because I'm so focused on getting all this money out to the candidates where it can make the biggest difference.
All right, fantastic. Folks can find, we'll put a link to the States Project of Future Now in our podcast and YouTube description. Always a pleasure, Aaron. Thanks.
All right, thanks for having me, Sam.
All right, bye-bye. All right, folks, quick break, and we'll be back with Brittany Dorris. It's a 5th grade teacher in Portland, Oregon. They're on strike there. We'll find out why. We are back. Sam Seder on the Majority Report. Joining me now, Brittany Dorris. She's a 5th grade teacher in Portland, Oregon. Brittany, thanks for joining us.
Yeah, thank you for having me. Glad to be here.
So, Brittany, give me a sense. You guys are now on the 5th day of the strike. We were both just trying to figure out how many people are striking?
Of our union membership is 4,500 people, and that's the teachers. And then we're also being joined by hundreds of community members, families. The kids are coming out and joining us on the line. It's a big deal. It feels massive.
And what are the big bones of contention here?
The big ones that we're struggling to bargain over are things like safe classrooms free of rodents and mold. Shocking. We are fighting for smaller class sizes. I currently have a class of 34 5th graders.
Wow.
And we are struggling. We're fighting for pay compensation that keeps up with inflation. Portland is the 12th most expensive city in the nation and the 2nd most expensive city for new teachers. And we want to keep up with this crazy inflation and be able to live in the city where we teach. which is a novel idea. And we're fighting for support for our students with special needs and disabilities and neurodivergence, because they are dramatically underserved with a skeletal support staff right now. So we're trying to get more adults to support the kids that we have and the issues that they're dealing with.
And so you guys are you out of contract now? I mean, the contract is expired, and how long has it been expired for, and how long was that contract in effect?
Yeah, so we negotiate 3-year contracts, and this entire academic year we've been working without a contract. We've been attempting to bargain this new contract for over a year. Our bargaining team has been hard at work and seeing very little movement from district management. So all year we've been working without a contract so far.
And what is your parent union, and which union are you affiliated with?
Yeah, so I'm a member of Portland Association of Teachers, which is nested under Oregon Education Association, which is nested under the National Education Association, NEA.
Okay. And because I feel like the NEA has gotten a little bit more aggressive in the past couple of years, really since the Red State Revolution, rebellion, I should say. Where you had teachers going out there and even the ones who aren't unionized, in most instances, going out there and striking and seeing returns on that.
Yeah, we've been in communication with a lot of other locals around the nation, and this is not a moment, it's a movement. We are seeing educators rise up throughout the country, especially after pandemic times, revealing the discrepancies and the inequities, and that teachers and educators won't stand for it anymore. Our kids can't wait. And it's hit Oregon. We're out here. Smaller unions around us have been striking recently. Other unions are watching how this goes for us, taking a note to see if they're going to be able to strike as well. And some of the other unions in Portland that work within our schools are also entering mediation in their contract bargaining. Our PFSP, that's our paraeducators and our custodial staff, our nutrition workers, they're all also nearing the point of strike, as their bargaining is not happening in good faith either.
Talk to me about the relationship with the parents and the community, because this is always, one of we've been tracking these teacher strikes, I think, personally since Chicago, and the Chicago teacher strike in, I think it was 2011, 2012. We've talked about that with Jane McAlevey, and it was one of the resurgence of a social justice unionism on some respect, where teachers in particular, and I find nurses are also situated this way, where their set of issues, and you mentioned this, it's really like you talk about 35 students in a class, in a fifth grade class. I have a fifth grader myself. The idea of 35 students in one class, it's difficult for you, but it's the kids who pay. And it's ultimately the parents and the families who pay. I mean, when you send your kid to school and they come back and they say, we had a rat in our classroom, this is an issue for the parents and for the kids and for the community. Tell me how the union has gone about to sort of develop and nurture those relationships.
Yeah, I feel very blessed here in Portland. We've got an incredibly supportive family community. And a lot of our teachers are parents in our district themselves. And the union has been in partnership with the local PTAs at all of our schools. We've been communicating pretty openly with parents since pandemic times of these are the ways that we're struggling to support your kid. And you don't want to admit where you're falling behind or where you're lacking. And it's not that teachers aren't trying to do an incredible job, but sharing authentically that we do not have enough resources and you are seeing it firsthand for your student. And our parents are righteously joining our fight for their students, and the students are joining. It's so beautiful to listen to the kids on the line with their side. They see it firsthand. The kids are all right in that they see it and they're fighting. The kids are not all right in the gutting of public education for the last 2 decades. And we are seeing the ramifications of that on the kids, on their mental health, on their academics. Yeah, and our families are with us.
And I imagine hopefully, you guys will prevail in this, but I imagine that will be pretty empowering too for the kids. I mean, it occurs to me like, my union is on strike as well, the SAG-AFTRA, and I've debated about taking my son out of school just to go down to the picket lines. But, so that he would get a taste of that. It's got to be, I think, also an opportunity for a learning experience, even on the lines with the kids.
Right. We teach our students to have a voice in what's going on in their community, to be active in making change. We teach them to be change makers, and they are seeing that firsthand. We are modeling a lesson in real life right now, and they are joining us right now outside this house. A handful of our students are on our picket line. It's a space of joy and righteous rage, well-placed rage. They are living in those sardine can classrooms. One of my students is out there with a chant about students are not sardines. Don't you know what that means? And they are feeling it directly, and they are modeling it for us. We should take a lesson from the youth. There was a student-centered march yesterday, a rally here in Portland, and it was just astonishing to see the youth leading the change and the charge. And we're just their amplifiers. We, the staff, are just here to put the megaphone to their mouth and let them be heard.
And just to be clear, we're talking teachers K through 12, all on strike, high schools, junior highs, and what's being done by the city to provide for students who rely on things like, are schools closed down, or are kids going in?
Right.
But
so our
go ahead.
Our buildings are shut down. There's no way to find and provide enough subs or scab workers to cover this large of a movement. But our union and our district are still providing essential services for our students. There are food pickups, very similar to the structures and supports we saw when we had to close schools in 2020 and 2019. So students are able to receive food, and there is some level of instruction being attempted by our paraeducators. There's some contention about that, families refusing to accept those services as it is struck work. But yeah, students have access to mental health care and the health centers and food, and all kinds of local support networks have been providing childcare for families that need to maintain a work schedule, and the community is really coming together to take care of its own. And we are in some ways fortunately kind of good at that now, because we all had to figure that out a few years ago. And so the parent community seems patient and supportive, and I think attempts at scaring the families from district management have been ineffective.
I was gonna. You may not know the answer to this, but how much did the union prior to this prior to the strike begin to create that infrastructure, or to coordinate that infrastructure to care for kids who needed childcare, to care for kids who needed the services, lunch, and perhaps help maybe with various sort of like more urgent needs. How much did the union sort of like set all those ducks up in a row? Because that's usually one of the first things we'll hear from the city is like the teachers are irresponsibly leaving the kids, at home, or are, making it harder on parents. How much did the union prepare for that stuff?
Right. We get a lot of, what about the kids? And we're saying, exactly, what about the kids? We've been fighting for them this whole time. And I think we've been credited as a union for being well prepared in getting ready to strike. You could see the writing on the wall. You could see that bargaining was making very little progress. They are not bargaining in good faith. And so we've been laying that structure this entire academic year based on support systems that were still lingering after the pandemic. And we have a push for a community school model in our area, really aware that schools are often the hub for families and children to get what they need. And we take that very seriously. And so those structures have been there somewhat all along and are activated early when it was clear we are careening towards a strike.
How long are you guys willing to stay out on the lines?
We're willing to be out here as long as it takes. I think the the district thinks that we will be scared off by the loss of health insurance. Our community has our backs. We are not worried about that. They think we will start to falter if we push towards the Thanksgiving holiday break. We will not falter. We are ready to be out here for a similar duration to you guys, SAG-AFTRA. We whatever it takes to get what we need and what we deserve and what our students deserve.
If someone's in Portland, what can they do to help you guys in this fight?
Yeah, we've got a strike support fund that is helping with some financial contributions, some of those support systems that we mentioned earlier, making sure kids are getting care and families have what they need. So going to pdxteachers.org, finding our strike fund, and there's a solidarity text chain that you can get in to keep updated. Finding the picket lines in your neighborhood. Anywhere there's a school, there's a picket line that starts our morning there. And bringing honks and bringing coffee and bringing love and support. Hand warmers. We had a delivery of hand warmers today that was very well received. And yeah, finding us out here. We have a rally today in Portland that we're hoping to have a lot of presence at over at our union office. We're going to be taking a bridge and showing up at someone's doorstep with a message.
Oh, great. And what time do you guys usually hit the picket lines? Is it is it through the school day or just the first half or what?
Yeah, we are doing some kind of union action through the entire school day. Our pickets are at our schools. We start at 7:45 getting ready. We're on the line by 8. And then we usually are starting to tear down right about 10:15, 10:30 to go have lunch, restore ourselves. You can tell a little bit we're losing our voices. We've been working hard. We're prioritizing care. And then we go back out by 11:30, 12 to an afternoon action of some kind, which has been incredibly moving rallies and marches and big Portland-wide actions. And it's like going to church. Some of these speeches, we've had the president of UTLA came out in solidarity and spoke to us, the president of NEA. It's really profound. And Kid March yesterday.
Great to hear it. Well, Brittany Dorris, 5th grade teacher in Portland, Oregon. Thanks so much for joining us. Good luck. And we'll put a link to that strike fund.
Thank you so much, Sam. Have a good day.
You too. All right, folks. Going to head into the fun half. I really had to check myself. You get access to a 5th grade teacher. You get a 5th grade kid. You're like, you want to ask all sorts of like, what's the bet? Where can I find resources to, I don't know, have my kid excel in math or something? But I mean, I asked my own teacher.
It's not quite appropriate to use your podcast for inside information on.
Is there any way you can inflate my kids' grades?
How do you get access to those scoring answer keys?
Exactly. All right. Well, we will we'll take a break and head into the fun half. We will talk more about these elections and obviously more about what's going on in Gaza. There was a really, a really interesting interview on CNN last night on Anderson Cooper of a nurse who works with Médecins Sans Frontières, or Doctors Without Borders, and pretty moving. It's also sort of like, well, there's a lot of thoughts I have about it in terms of who gets to say what on television.
Yeah.
But
and who gets to say what without having to condemn Hamas before they get to say it.
And also we have a similar story in Congress with Rashida Tlaib. I mean, some of the things that have been said in Congress, and both within the context of what has happened over the past 3 or 4 weeks and completely outside of it. And the idea that Tlaib gets censured, I can completely understand why Republicans would do this. There were 22 Democrats who we will mention their names when we get to the other side, who voted to censure Tlaib. I would imagine a bunch of them were our APAC candidates, particularly Dan Goldman from these parts.
Yeah, I think everyone has
Pat
taken...
Ryan, really disappointing to me. From upstate, these are more purpley things. I mean, there's two types of districts as far as I'm looking at these things. There is you're either in like New York, and you have a very sort of like probably a strong support of Israel, like vehement and AIPAC money, or you're in sort of a purple district where they're still living in the sort of like era of, well, I don't know, other places aren't, but an era of like immediately suspect of of Palestinian. Also, we didn't pull it, but we should pull that Washington Post. There was an editorial cartoon that honestly, like, if you had put a different caption on it and said this was, 1937, make it into black and white, 1937 depiction of a Jew in the lead up to what was happening in Germany, it almost indistinguishable and fascinating in some way.
Democracy dies in the darkness.
All right, but we will take a break. Just a reminder, it's your support that makes this show possible. If you want to become a member, and we hope you do, go to jointhemajority.report.com. Listen to the show a couple of times a week. Support the program if you can. If you can't, send us an email at majorityreporters@gmail.com, and we will make sure that you get set up. We do not exclude people for financial reasons. But if you do have the means, always could use your support to help this show survive and thrive. Join themajorityreport.com. Also, don't forget Just Coffee, fair trade coffee featuring the Majority Report blend. Yes, there are other blends that are great too. I'm not going to lie. I've tried many of them. I always come back to the Majority Report blend because how could I not? And a local coffee shop upstate. Just coincidentally, Majority Report blend is their house blend. But justcoffee.coop, use the coupon code majority, get 10% off. Emma on break. She'll be here tonight for our live coverage of the third Republican debate. Only 5 little mini Trumps will be on that stage. Chris Christie, Nikki Haley, Ron DeSanctimonious.
Well, Vivek is going to be the most interesting to watch because he is on the tightrope of proving that I want to kill the most Hamas members, but also want to be isolationist, and I want you to all credit me with that while I'm being a brown guy. And so it's going to be interesting to see how he navigates tonight. Tim
Scott will be there. How many times do you think they're going to mention Rashida Tlaib in the debate?
They just play it. They have a moment of silence to censure her.
We could play a drinking game. The debate will start at 8 p.m. We will start our coverage at 7:59, or maybe a little bit earlier, at our YouTube channel. Bradley, ESVN, what's the deal?
We broke down the NFL action from Sunday, as well as discussed the Jim Harbaugh University of Michigan sign stealing scandal, which has continued to complicate itself since we last recorded. And we will be back tomorrow for our picks, against the spread and Survivor picks. YouTube.com/ESPN show. We'll be back at 4 p.m. tomorrow.
Matt.
Last night on Left Reckoning, we talked about both Rashida Tlaib and also labor leaders in the UK being censured over the phrase "from the river to the sea." And also we talked with Spanish-Italian journalist Tiara Gattemora about both what's going on in Spain with regards to their left-wing parties, as well as cultural politics and sort of European perspective on different feminism and that sort of stuff. So patreon.com/Left Reckoning to get access to that.
See you in the fun half. left is best. Jamie and I may have a disagreement.
Yeah, you can't just say whatever you want about people just because you're rich.
I have an absolute right to mock them on YouTube.
He's up there buggy whipping like he's the boss.
I am not your employer.
You know, I'm tired of the negativity.
I'm sorry, I didn't mean to upset you. You're nervous? You're a little bit upset? You're riled up?
Yeah, maybe you should rethink your defense of that, you fucking idiots.
We're just going to get rid of you.
All right.
But dude, you want to smoke this joint?
Yes.
Do you feel like you are a dinosaur?
Some good shit.
Exactly. I'm happy now.
It's a win-win.
It's a win-win-win.
Oh, hell yeah.
Now listen to me. 2, 3, 4, 5 times. 847-906-501-457. 2, 38, 56, 27. 1/2. 5 8s. 3.9 billion.
Wow.
He's the ultimate math nerd.
Don't you see?
Why don't you get a real job instead of spewing vitriol and hatred, you left-wing Limbaugh?
Everybody's taking their dumb juice today.
Come on, Sammy.
Dance, dance, dance.
Rand Paul.
I had my first post-coital scene with a woman. I'm hoping to add more moves to my repertoire. All I have is the dip and the swirl.
Fine, we can double dip.
Yes, this is a perfect moment.
No.
Wait, what?
You make under $1 million a year. You're scum. You're nothing.
Excuse me? Fuck you, you fucking liberal elite. I think you belong in jail.
Thank you for saying that, Sam. You're a horrible, despicable person.
All right, gonna take a quick break. I want to take a moment to talk to some of the libertarians out there. Take whatever vehicle you want to drive to the library. What you're talking about is jibber jabber.
Classic. I'm feeling more chill already.
Good. Donald Trump can kiss all of our asses.
Hey, Sam. Hey, Andy. You guys ready to do some evil?
Hitler was such an idiot.
That guy might be a Nazi.
Agree.
No.
Death to America.
You.
Yes.
Wow.
Wow, that's weird. No way! Unbelievable. This guy's got a really good hook. Throw our hands up.
Ooh.
Wow.
But Sam, I gotta get off.
No worries. Let's. I want to just flesh this out a little bit. I mean, look, it's a free speech issue. If you don't like me,
Hey, shut up!
Thank you for calling into the Majority Report. Sam will be with you shortly.
we are back. It is Kowalski from Nebraska on the IMs. You know what I was thinking about, Matt, before we read this, is that can we do live chyrons?
Like live updating ones?
Yeah, just like a chyron that says like, listener, IM.
And actually put the text of the IM into the Chiron?
No, not the text of the IM, just like it flashing down below
like,
here. Listener IM.
Like we're doing
listener
a segment.
Call. Yeah.
We could get some of those mocked up, nice little like borders. Or I could just do some raw text, you know, do some Comic Sans.
Yeah, we should do that. Because then, folks clip the show quite a bit. It would give some context for what's going on. I think that would be helpful. Kowalski from Nebraska. Howdy, Sam, Bradley, Matt, Emma in absentia. MR listeners and all the ships at sea. 3 days and 3 more days of harvest are left. Friday will bring the 8-week harvest season to an end. We covered over 4,200 acres or 6.5 square miles or about 5 New York Central parks worth of land. Friday, I will be unleashed back into the community. Make your peace with God, Central Nebraska. I've been making plans now, and I have money to turn my dreams into a frightening reality for those who get in my way. I was always wondering about that. Like, I was always wondering about that. Whether it's like, folks at sea, like on ship leave. War sucks. Sam, would you be willing to talk your Israel-Hamas war position? Maybe with Pac-Man, Destiny, or Ethan Klein, or smaller creators like Lonerbox or I'm Really Important? I'm not familiar with those other Lonerbox or I'm Really Important. And I'd, if any of those three, Pac-Man, Destiny, or Ethan Klein wanted to, I would be happy to.
Also, Norm Finkelstein's available for at least a couple of those guys. I would like to see that, actually.
Yeah, I mean, look, I think there are people who are far more knowledgeable about these things than I. If it would draw attention, if there's a sense that it would draw more attention to these issues, then to have me do it than Norm Finkelstein, I'm not sure why that would be the case, but certainly they could debate them. I mean, I'd be happy to. But, I don't know if I would do it on this show because, I'm not sure what the point is. But if somebody wants to have me on their show or go to like a third place, yeah.
Yeah, I'm not sure all those guys would want to in the first place, but I would recommend at least one of those guys should get in touch with Norm Finkelstein. I would like to see it.
Yeah, I mean, I think that, like, look, if there was, I mean, I'd be happy to debate someone who's not necessarily a commentator on this on some level, give them an opportunity to sort of, to try and justify it. I mean, Israel's actions here, or even to, have a discussion about Zionism, broadly speaking. Because I think, certainly I've been on a,
yeah, I think with Pac-Man and Ethan, it would be a discussion more than almost a debate.
Yeah, I mean, I've debated Destiny on I think he was
Rittenhouse.
He was mad that I was critical of calling Kyle Rittenhouse a killer, even though, like, Kyle Rittenhouse is a killer. That is not a controversial statement. When you kill somebody, you're a killer. Now, I didn't say that he murdered anybody because he was not found. That's a legal term, and he was not found to have committed murder. He was just a killer, and I didn't. And I found the circumstances in which he killed to be illegitimate. The thing that annoyed me about Destiny, really, honestly, was how he was convinced that if I would have condoned his actions, Kyle Rittenhouse, if he was black, and which I found to be, sort of ill-founded.
You're saying that in the most appropriate way possible as to what Destiny actually.
Oh yeah, well no, he said I would be very enthusiastically, extremely enthusiastically, and frankly, a lot of his audience are, sort of like
illiterate.
Pubescent boys. And I was a pubescent boy, and I would have, found that to be a good argument in the way that he phrased it. When you get to be a grown up, you realize, like, the idea that I would support someone who goes on a killing rampage to protect property. Or let me put it this way, so that it is not crossing any boundaries. The idea that I would be cheerleading somebody who grabbed a weapon to protect property from protesters and then was just sort of meandering around enough that he somehow got himself into multiple conflicts where he ended up shooting multiple people to death. Regardless of what the, how many, whatever the violations these people had done, whatever the moral turpitude of his victims were, which also seems like, I don't know how you balance the idea of, like, self-defense with, I could divine what bad things they had done in their lives before, and that's why I had to kill them. Yeah. But nevertheless, the idea that I would that my assessment of that situation would turn on the color of one's skin, and that's the only context in which I would judge these things from, was spurious in and of itself.
Yeah.
The idea that I would express this by imbibing significant amounts of someone's sexual releases is what you do when your audience is like 13-year-olds.
Yeah, you want attention.
But again, 13-year-olds are important to reach.
Yeah, that's why he should have Norm Finkelstein on. I want to see that debate. Like this thing, like where anybody who says like, "Oh, this thing is objectionable," that Destiny said, "Well, you got to debate him." Like, I'm not trying to raise my profile on this issue and make myself like the champion of Palestinians.
Well, this is the weird thing about YouTube culture or Twitch culture is that it really becomes like, who cares whether Matt Leck or Sam Seder is an expert at this? When you have experts at this, and you have a strong position, you want to test it, go out and test it.
Yeah. Or just play video games and
this isn't
Wikipedia articles.
This isn't just like sort of like, nobody knows for sure about certain questions of politics, and you can be like a sort of a dilettante and on this stuff. And it can be expressed. I mean, the reason why I want to go and debate conservatives is literally just to humiliate them. I mean, that's it. I mean, to humiliate them in some fashion, even if it's in the most sophomoric way possible, because that's the language that they speak. But if you're going to have a debate from the center to the left on a topic that has this level of seriousness and literally is life or death, why wouldn't you want to engage experts at this?
It's weird. Or you just play video games and, scan Wikipedia articles, then comment broadly on genocide without, talking to anybody that might have an expertise in the subject. But you're getting the Twitch sub, so who cares?
Rob from Dedham, please name all the 22 Dems that voted to censure Talib. They need to be primaried next election. Absolutely disgusting. Let's do this. Do we have that clip from Mehdi Hassan and? All right. Well, do you have that clip of Maas? That guy, what he said?
Yeah, Maas.
The guy who said Maas. Oh yes. All right, you just play the one that I had pulled into the thing. This is Mehdi Hassan and I'm in. Well, I can't. I have trouble with his last name. And I think this is when they. This is Sunday night, was it? And Mehdi's show is on MSNBC on Sunday nights, and then Ayman Molinari's is after it. And so they hand over, and they were talking about the move at that time. The vote had not happened to censure Rashid Tlaib, and they play this clip from what's this guy's name? Maas? What is it? Brian Maas, who cosplayed as an IDF soldier. Apparently, he was there on a 2-month summer internship, and so he wore his uniform to work one day. It's fine. I mean, my kid has PJ day at school, so I understand the dynamic. But this guy got on the floor, and I'll let Mehdi Hassan take it from here.
Eamon, before I go, I just want to talk to you about something that's really been bothering me. I know it's been bothering you too. If you look at the numbers, the Palestinian Health Ministry, the Gaza Health Ministry, says that a child in Gaza has been killed every 10 minutes since the start of this conflict. That's the equivalent of 6 kids killed since I began the show tonight. And yet, we have right-wing politicians in the United States, forget Israel, suggesting that kids in Gaza, women and children, are not innocent civilians. They're Nazis. Not my words. Republican Congressman Brian Mast speaking in the House. Have a listen.
I would encourage the other side to not so lightly throw around the idea of innocent Palestinian civilians, as is frequently said. I don't think we would so lightly throw around the term innocent Nazi civilians during World War II.
Eamon, you and I have discussed outrageous statements made by Donald Trump, Ron DeSantis, Marjorie Taylor Greene, Lauren Boebert on this show. In this handover.
Let's just, he's starting by that point, the idea of censoring Rashid Tlaib was out there. Just to be clear, like the proper analogy would be innocent German civilians. But here, this guy is basically saying they're all enemy combatants, all 2.4 million Palestinians in Gaza. In fact, I guess he's also including the West Bank. And that's pretty offensive to a thing to say. I mean, to a whole host of people, but of course to Palestinians. But I mean, it's pretty offensive thing to say, I don't know, to Germans. It is pretty offensive thing to say to, anybody who's ever been like, the implication being like, was Osama bin Laden, were we all enemy combatants when Al-Qaeda hit us? I mean, honestly, it's just like, it's
if Hamas said everybody at that concert is a Zionist, so there you go.
Who exactly? Who's not an enemy combatant? Like, what's the concept of civilians? If you make that no, it's like what, honestly, like, is there why do we even talk about civilians at that point? And that just passes where the news media is more or less like, he's a Republican, so it's not okay, but it's not that big of a deal. Now, Democrats should have been clamoring for some type of censure. Like, even if you are adamantly pro-Israel, can you really say that citizens of a country that are at war are civilians that are okay targets? You can't. But Democrats did nothing. However, they did do this. They voted to censure Rashid Tlaib. We should say that it was all the Republicans. I think there was a couple that did not. Ken Buck did not censure Tlaib. There was 3 other Republicans who did not as well.
Yeah, it was Ken Buck of Colorado, Thomas Massey of Kentucky, John Duarte of California, and Tom McClintock of California.
And then we had 22 Democrats who did. I am not familiar with all of these, so I don't know where they're all coming from. Steve Cohen from Mississippi, that is a real shame. Tennessee, sorry. That is a real shame. Oh, here we go. We've got a good list here. Jim Costa from California, Angie Craig from Minnesota, Don Davis from North Carolina, Lois Frankel from Florida, Jared Golden from Maine, Dan Goldman from New York. He got a lot of money from AIPAC. I would imagine all of these did. And if I, if I have defamed you as a congressperson by saying you didn't get a bunch of money from AIPAC, then let me further defame you by saying it's not even cowardice that's driving you to do this, just sheer bloodlust.
I think Justice Democrats had a image up, and they've all taken, I think, over like $20,000,
Okay.
basically. Actually, Goldman on the lower end of a lot of these guys.
Right, because he's self-funding.
Right.
Josh Geisenheimer, just an odious person This is
Who said all Muslims should feel guilty about October 7th?
Greg Landsman, Ohio, Susie Lee, Nevada, Kathy Manning, North Carolina, Jared Moskowitz, Florida, Wiley Nickel, North Carolina, Chris Pappas, New Hampshire, Marie Glusenkamp Perez in Washington, Pat Ryan in New York. That's a real disappointment to me. I'm familiar with that guy, and he, in many other issues, he is on the right side of this. This would not. It's hard for me to believe that, regardless of how tough of an election or something that he thinks he's facing, that he would pay that much of a political price. It's all donor stuff. Yes. And it really just gives me an insight as to, where maybe some of his donor base is, which is, again, really disappointing. Brad Schneider, Illinois, Kim Schreier, Washington, Darren Soto, Florida, Richie Torres, New York, who's been absolutely repugnant on all of this. Debbie Wasserman Schultz, who's generally repugnant on things, and Frederica Wilson in Florida as well. Here are the AIPAC donations for the 22 Yes Democrats. Well, I should have read this off at the same time, frankly. Wilson Frederica, $35,000. Richie Torres, whoa. Well, that explains a lot.
I mean, $350,000.
342,000. Darren Soto, 76,000. Kim Schreier, 167,000 from AIPAC. Brad Schneider, Illinois, 1.156 million from AIPAC. I mean, on some level, don't you have to get rid of?
Gottheimer?
Don't you really need to get? Don't you just get rid of the Illinois thing and just put in AIPAC?
Yeah. I mean, Gottheimer, do they really need to give him $1.16 million? I think he probably would have been happy with half that.
Pat Ryan, 70,000. I imagine that goes a long way up in District 18 in New York. Chris Pappas from New Hampshire, 234,000. Wiley Nickel. Oh, they come cheap down in North Carolina. That's 18 grand from AIPAC. Jared Moskowitz, 42,000. Kathy Manning, $557,000 in North Carolina. Susie Lee in Nevada, 115,000. Greg Landsman, Ohio, just a mere $36,000. Josh Gottheimer, bringing in the big bucks, $1.16 million. I mean, from AIPAC.
That's like a whole staff. Like you can pay.
Dan Goldman, $51,000. That's chump change for him, but of course he's self-funded. Sure, he'll get more next time. Jared Golden. Well, you know what it is with a guy like Goldman. It is, he doesn't need the money. He's basically ensuring that if someone from the left challenges him in a year, that AIPAC will deploy money against the other person. I mean, let's be clear. That's, sort of the dynamic here. It's one thing to put up how much money they're getting. Jared Golden, $302,000. Lois Frankel, $336,000. Don Davis, $290,000. Angie Craig, $169,000. Jim Costa, $260,000. Steve Cohen, $95,000. It's one thing to put up the list of money they're getting from AIPAC, but what they're also signaling to you is they're worried about a challenge from the left. Not all of them, but probably most of them. They're worried about a challenge from the left. They're worried maybe that a person of color will challenge them from the left. And it's always maybe about the money they get, but what's really, really important to them, and this is what this, the money they get is a signifier, but the real money they want is they want to know that AIPAC in the event and DMFI, right? DMFI will, in the event that they're challenged from the left, will deploy millions of dollars in their defense with outside expenditures. That's what's really going on. That's what's really going on. It's disgusting. It's disgusting. They tried to do this with Ilhan Omar. And they stepped all over their big bill to do it. But this is the nature of always, and it depends on the issue. The Democratic Party is not as homogenous as the Republican Party, which is why, it's a problem. We should go out and primary these people. We should primary regardless of this. Most of those people I would primary.
There's a lot that didn't make that list that need to be primaried on the same issue.
And frankly, there's some that I wouldn't have primaried in the absences, although I feel like everybody should be primaried, frankly. But this is the reality of the Democratic Party. And when you talk about strategy or anything like that, you've got to recognize this is the reality. The other option is you got 220 people on the other side who want to censure Tlaib. This is the reality of American politics. We don't have a parliamentary system. If we did, those 22, or maybe it would be another 50, would be in some other caucus, some other party that would be in a unity government with, the Democrats, and then maybe the, I don't know, the Democratic Socialists. Who knows? But that's not the system we have. But yeah, these people are horrible. Worth giving them a call. I'm not in Pat Ryan's district anymore. I was for like 10 minutes up at the 19th, right, where I vote. But I'll get somebody to call. Does Rashida Tlaib have a serious primary challenger? There's no doubt in my mind she will. Moody Monkey. Democrats need to call the members of the Virginia legislature to ensure party fealty so there are no mid-season surprises. Like we mentioned, I think this is a different crew. So the best is left. I heard check 1, 2. I don't know what that means. Frankly, Zappa, please tell me you guys are going to cover the Crowder school shooter manifesto story today. No, I haven't even seen much of that.
So I haven't looked super deeply into it, but my gloss is that he got access to the manifesto somehow, and contrary to what they were saying about it being pro-trans or whatever, it's now anti-white because of something the kids scribbled into it, and there's some sort of I haven't looked into it too much, to be honest. Maybe we do for. I'm gonna watch a little bit. But to be honest, it's just like, I think he's really happy to talk about something that isn't Israel-Palestine.
Right. National Jewish organizations are asking for the public to join them in Washington, D.C. next week for a pro-Israel protest on the National Mall. Oh, really? Ew. I was excited. I thought you were going to say National Jewish organizations to defend Palestine. But
there is news on the protests in the UK that they were looking at trying to get legally stopped, I believe, on Armistice Day. Those are now going to be allowed to go through, which is the pro-Palestine protest.
A militant apathy. Like I said, the sample for these polls is wrong. I will repeat, if they're using a sample that shows 22% of Fulton County is going to vote for Trump, the sample is trash. Men are so phony about birth control. Let's be honest. What man really prefers to use condoms? But they target all the rage on women. Anecdotally, the main cohort of black people who are supposed to be going towards Trump are black men. But who are the most reliable Democratic voters? Black women. Every election. It's so simple. I'm starting to think the black voters hate Dems Biden is just a Republican op to suppress the black female vote. Custodial artist. So with Basir winning in Kentucky, do we think McConnell may not run again? Because if he does pass, Bashir can put up a Dem? I think
I'm pretty positive
Kentucky changed the law there about
specifically for
6 years ago for
purposes,
McConnell.
Yeah.
Custodiar, Sam, your second guest could have been any one of the teachers here at my school. We are a private school and are facing the same issues. Solidarity, left is best. Sam's tied tongue. It's going to be a long day, everyone. Drek, just Sam and boyish. Boish. Oh, sorry.
And the Boish.
Garrett's Moms for Liberty, a.k.a. Planned Parenthood, was also rejected here in Virginia, too. Loud. That's pretty good.
I love Planned Parenthood.
That's awesome. Kick some of those Christo-fascists off their school board. Yes, Loudoun County, that was good. Coach McGurk, testing this to see if my IMs are getting through. Majority Report wardrobe coordinator. Why aren't organizations like APAC and DMFI subject to FARA? Because they're I think the money they raise is probably local. I mean, domestic. Vermont Bend. I ended my 3-year Pacman membership. I just could not do it anymore. I saw a pre-roll advertisement on the MR Fun Half YouTube video for that pro-Israel rally next week. It's being billed as a rally to bring the hostages home. Here's one way. If you want to support the hostages coming home, pressure the Israeli government to, and if they think that Hamas is bluffing, to call their bluff. They call for a 5-day ceasefire to release the hostages. 5 days.
I mean, just think if they did that at the beginning, say, not immediately responded, but okay, we're going to do prisoner swaps and things like that. And if Hamas said, okay, I guess we weren't expecting you to respond so measuredly, and started killing people like this, you know.
I know you're not supporting it, Vermont Ben. I'm just saying. It's outrageous. You know, we got a call yesterday. We got an IM. How would you handle a unilateral ceasefire? And I took the question, I accepted the premise because that was what the question was. And I explained it. But the fact is that, like, we know at the very least there was an offer on the table by Hamas to do that. Would they use that time to regroup? Yes, of course. Just like Israel will if there's a humanitarian pause. But if you want the hostages home, there's a way to get the hostages home.
And it's not to continue bombing the people. You're also saying use human shields.
Iowa, exactly. Iowa Ryan. I mean, look, the fact is that what do the words facts on the ground mean? When the Israeli government has had a multi-decade policy of putting facts on the ground, what are they saying? Those facts are human beings. Ground is occupied territory. What do they hope these facts on the ground will do? They are a shield, a buffer between Tel Aviv and the West Bank. These settlements down there, they are to create facts on the ground, to establish borders. The Israeli people have been used in the same way. It's just like the only difference is the asymmetry of the weaponry. That's all. It's an absurd claim. And even to the extent that is, you could say that it's true, it does not justify the killing of civilians. It doesn't justify it. Anarcho PMC. One downside of yesterday was the 2 Michigan House reps who won their mayoral bids, leaving Michigan House tied until the special elections happen. Fair. Dan from Columbus. The other dude from that Hannity clip looks more like an evil real estate developer from a 90s movie. I can't remember who that guy is.
I can't get over it. Charlie Hurt. He's a Fox contributor.
Yeah, I don't know where I've seen him before. Ethan Klein put his podcast with Hassan Leftovers on pause because he felt the conversation would constantly devolve into talking about Israel-Palestine, so I don't think he'd be interested. Yeah, I mean, I don't know. Dan from Columbus, I am shocked, I say, to see Debbie Wasserman Schultz on this list. She sucks. Tommy from Israel. Okay. Oh, I got sort of spammed here. Cool that your Twitter account retweets Lee Carter with conspiracy theories about how it was the IDF that killed all those Israelis on October 7th. I saw that tweet. We unretweeted it. You should know. I do think in this country, we don't get the same reporting that we get in Israel about exactly how those battles went down and how many of the Israelis were killed by getting caught in the crossfire. But yes, I agree that we are not in a position to make those type of assessments.
Yeah. OSINT.
Yeah.
No majority report, open source intelligence anymore.
And yes, no, I've seen the videos of Hamas attacking vehicles with RPGs and grenade launchers, et cetera, et cetera. And then you're outraged that people doubt the destruction in Gaza? Who doubts the destruction in Gaza? What sentient human being doubts the destruction in Gaza? No, I'm not outraged that people doubt the destruction of Gaza because nobody does. I'm outraged because people don't care about the destruction in Gaza. If you go back to the first days of in the wake of these attacks, it was Monday. I think I was in Vegas that first day. I spent all the time watching CNN and this and that. Wall-to-wall coverage of what was going on. Now, it is true, and I don't think anybody would refute this, even like one of the most pro-Netanyahu newspapers in the country, in Israel, the Israeli government was a complete disaster in responding to this incursion by Hamas. And they were a complete disaster in terms of reporting what was going on. They weren't even getting in touch with people's families who had been killed or kidnapped in Israel. But to the extent that there was any information, it was wall-to-wall coverage on American television. And I'm not saying there shouldn't have been, but like, it's not even remotely commensurate. Human suffering is human suffering. And Israel did everything it could to diminish the amount of coverage of the destruction coming out of Gaza. And the fact is, and look, I've been alive and watching this for 45 years. And in many respects, for at least, earlier in my life, was completely dispassionate about any of the suffering inflicted upon Palestinians, because that was just the way that we were indoctrinated, and not just indoctrinated, like there was no humanization of Palestinians in U.S. media. It just wasn't. Zero. I'm not justifying my position at that time. I'm explaining it. But now, just the idea that people would lament the suffering. And I understand why that's the case, because you need to reckon with the concept of Zionism, at least in the form that it is now. Because I do think that there were strands of Zionism, and we'll have somebody on. I think we have somebody on to talk about that, like the road not taken or something. But it's a hard thing to reckon with. You know, I think, frankly, some people, I think they're, you know,
Israel literally was banning the works of Pappy and Avi Shlaim, the new historians, around the 2000s because it was an identity crisis.
Exactly.
And the same one we're going through with CRT in this country. It's just Israel's has been much more concentrated over time.
Exactly. And I think that they're, Tommy from Israel, when I say doubt the destruction of Gaza, I mean the Zionists who cast doubt on the number of casualties caused by the IDF. Like, who's even doing that anymore? I mean, we're past that. Like, honestly, like even the Israeli army, even the Israeli press is taking it at face value because the Ministry of Health has a history of reporting correctly. And how can you look at these numbers and not, if anything, a normal human being would look at these things and say, like, how can it only be 10,000?
Found another journalist under rubble the other day.
Free parking. Are there any plans to make the AM Quickie in podcast form again? I love the newsletter, but really enjoyed being able to listen to it while getting ready for work every morning. Yeah, I am working on an IA version.
TT, yeah, text to speech.
Yep. AI. I call it IA.
That's what I call it.
That's it. AI, IA, AI.
I mean, intelligent automation is actually better than artificial intelligence.
Thank you. Thank you. Charlie Shearer. They wanted the state to decide, and state chose bodily autonomy, so it's an issue they're working through. Tomo Flink. Oh, yeah, let's play this clip. I didn't realize Rick Santorum was still alive. Now, Rick Santorum could say the same thing about me. I remember calling Rick Santorum's office back in the day when he had said that all of the pedophile scandal in the Catholic Church in Boston, he said at the time, this was back in the aughts, was a function of the salaciousness of Boston area in Massachusetts. And I called up his office to find out if he had a list of sluts that I could, in the Massachusetts area, because I wanted to double check and see if I knew any of them. That went well. But here's Rick Santorum, who, if I'm not mistaken, we got to look this up. See if he was elected in 2004, if he got reelected or was elected in the Senate in 2004. Because if he was, that was, when was he elected? 95.
He was state senator from Pennsylvania, 95 to 2007, and then member of the House.
1991.
Oh, wow, yeah.
Okay, so I don't know that he enjoyed the ballot initiatives on gay marriage, constitutional referendums that were up there as a big push to get evangelicals out to vote for George Bush in 2004. But now remember where the whole thing about Republicans before they caught the car was, this is an issue that states should decide. We should allow the people to decide this, not some fiat judges. Well, that doesn't seem to be working out so well. Here is Rick Santorum on Newsmax.
Let's bring it back here to our panel now. So we're looking at, obviously, the issues of abortion and marijuana in the state of Ohio now. Now 50%, over 50% of the country has legalized marijuana. Senator, you look at these issues that are driving the left out to vote. You would think the economy, crime, illegal immigration, those would be some of the issues driving people out when you look at so many who are unsatisfied with the direction the country's headed in.
Pause it, incidentally. If it was crime, you'll notice that the murder rate dropping precipitously. Crime is, increasingly getting closer to 2019 levels, in some instances lower, actually. The economy, if you look at the economy, and yes, during COVID, We had an increase in prices, some of which continues to be locked in, particularly in terms of rents. But in terms of like the way that the economy is operated by the measure that they're talking about, because these people would not call in any way for any type of reformation or maintenance of the programs that we had that would support people. If you look at where we were in 2019 and all projections, the economy in the measure they're talking about is, because we don't have the ability to make COVID not have existed, is performing certainly as well as it was under Trump. Let's put it that way. But nevertheless, now they're concerned about these issues. But go ahead.
Apparently, that's not it.
Remember, these elections, off-year elections, odd-number elections, are very low turnout elections. They are base elections. And the Democrats have traditionally, number one, outspent us, not just in odd-number year elections, but generally speaking, number one. And number two, their base is more ginned up to go out and vote generally than Republicans. We've seen this now for the last several years. And so a base election, Democrats outspend, and you put very sexy things like abortion and marijuana on the ballot, and a lot of young people come out and vote. It was a secret sauce for disaster in Ohio. I don't know what they were thinking, but that's why I thank goodness that most of the states in this country don't allow you to put everything on the ballot, because pure democracies are not the way to run a country.
So then to the senator's point, Mercy, what do you think this means for what we can expect in 2024? I mean,
all right, I think
Matt Schlapp's wife still getting work.
So funny that she wants to be out of the house, I would imagine. But so funny that Rick Santorum now has a problem with states actually deciding about abortion, because it's so sexy.
Yeah, in 2002, he was one of these people who was like, judges don't come in and say we can't teach about creationism.
Exactly. But they realize they have an abortion problem. I mean, you could see it with Mike Johnson running away from this issue, and it's very, very hard. And they are smart enough to hide the ball until they're in a position of power, and then they'll just pass a federal ban. Do not kid yourselves. They govern, to their credit. To their credit, Republicans govern as if like they're robbing the last bank that they can rob. And so they're going to take as much money as they can. Even if they got to go to jail, they know that they'll be able to bury that money and get it when they come out, like Shawshank Redemption or whatever it is. And now they realize they got a problem.
It's a secret sauce for destruction when you have things like, should we allow marijuana? Should we continue to have it be a matter for police on the ballot?
Right. Can we lock up more black people at a higher rate than white people? And to be clear, he's right. The past couple of years, you've seen Democrats come out in off-year elections in a way that we haven't in the past. It is extremely rare in the history of electoral politics for Democrats to win in off-year elections. And particularly when there's a Democrat in the presidency. Republicans consistently better at bringing out a baseline of people in off-year elections and then having more trouble in presidential elections. And that pattern has been broken. We saw it in 2022. We're seeing it in 2023. And that's a good sign. It's an absence of a bad sign. Let's put it that way. Mass praxis. I'm happy about Ohio's election results. It goes to show that Ohio is less of a red state and more of a rig state with GOP gerrymandering and voter restrictions. I know people here are celebrating, but the rest assured the Republican state government is going to do everything in its powers to curtail these new amendments, just like they did with redistricting. There's still a lot of work that needs to be done in this state. I believe the next goals should be electoral reform. Left is best. Well, if there is an ability to tie in what they're going to try and do to curtail abortion rights in that state, even though the Constitution is there, into electoral reforms, that's the next sort of step in Ohio and other places. North Dakota llama. Oh no, not my dear billionaire Governor Burgum. How will he cope with the missing the debate? Brooklyn Sue. Why not celebrate the big win in Ohio by popping a pre-show edible? That way you can avoid the hangover entirely, and it might make for an extra hilarious show. That really does seem...
I think about this time of the show, it might be a little bit interesting. The last 2 hours, or 2 hours into an edible, might start being a little bit hazy.
So what are you saying?
I don't know if you can handle edible and broadcast at the same time, is what I'm saying.
I don't know if I can either.
Yeah.
I don't know if I can either. Back in my youth, when I was a little bit more involved in
partaking,
there were times where I would try marijuana for the first time and not inhale, and get on stage late night in Boston and do stand up. And on those occasions, David Cross would come and physically tackle me on stage. And I remember being almost paralyzed, incapable of even responding to any of it. It was just too much. There wasn't a lot of people watching the stand up, but I could get through a stand up set. Buff Huckins. Hi, I'm our crew. I dropped my Pac-Man membership and converted it to a Left Reckoning membership. Principles always matter, and the plight of Palestinians can't be swept under the rug. Keep on keeping on, guys. You're on the right track. Left is best.
Cheers.
Well done. I'll give you one of these. I mean, I don't want to encourage people to drop Pac-Man membership or other people's memberships.
Yeah.
People can do what they want. But kudos to you for getting a Left Reckoning membership. There you go. Courier 11. I'm sure at some point someone has advised Sean Hannity of being smart, but it was probably his grandma accused him of being smart. Okay. I don't either. Augie's left paw. As a Michigander, I was born and raised to dislike Ohio. There's some good moves on their part, but let's just wait to see what they do. Quick question. How do y'all remain somewhat positive in these times? What's happening in the real world and seeing some of the vitriol online has been insane. Came by a man saying that the U.S. loves Israel and Rashida Tlaib needs to be jailed, just like January 6 people. He was on TikTok, and that shit has been wild.
Dialectics is the art of always landing on your feet, I think they say. But I think, you look at the world is horrible, but also if we were in 1967 and we had the same window to the world, that would also look atrocious. And it's just the world we live in.
The past month has been difficult.
Yes.
I mean, because we got to spend a lot of time online. And it is impossible to be online a bit and not see both horrible images of suffering of children. I mean, I just have images seared in my head, and it's and then on top of that, I get a steady stream of friends who are outraged, and I'm like a sponge for some of that for some people. And that can be difficult. And then also, to be honest, my positions on this are not necessarily consistent with those in different members of my family, and that becomes an issue. So how to remain somewhat positive? I try and detach myself from my emotions as much as possible and
disassociate.
I've noticed a market uptick in my alcohol consumption. And also I find staying and not sleeping also really helps.
Stay up till 4 a.m.
Yep. That really... War on Santa. Sam, you've mentioned the shower several times in very specific context lately. If you're really looking for an accountability partner, consider your shower drain. After all, it's seen you at your best and your worst, both the flotsam and the jetsam. Sam. Oh, God. Juvenile. Hi, crew. Cash Money Records taking over from the 99 and 2000. P.S. Massachusetts said mission failed. We'll get you next time. Your mission to inform us and keep us in levity in dark times, however, was a huge success, and we salute you. I'm not sure I follow all of that, but thank you. Let's play this thing from Anderson Cooper. This is long, but I really think it deserves to be. I don't know if we can play all the 8 minutes. I mean, let's hop in the middle. Basically, yeah, the last 4 or 5 minutes, 4 minutes. This is Emily Callahan. She is a nurse activity manager with Doctors Without Borders. When they let Westerners out the Rafah Gate, guess it was a week ago, maybe. She was one of the people that got out. Doctors Without Borders, I think it lost a couple of doctors, without a doubt. There was a lot of UN aid workers who were killed. She's talking about her work in Gaza. And what they do is what she does, she coordinates, they bring in doctors from, I just know this happens to be a charity that I contribute to a little bit. They bring outside doctors in and managers and coordinate medicine in areas that are in dire need of it. She was on Anderson Cooper's show. I don't know if this was further than they were hoping that she would go. But credit where credit's due for bringing her on, with the caveat of we have a problem that, I had mentioned earlier about what we had access to in American media in the decades in which Palestinians were living in the occupation. And we really are, we're exposed to one side of the story. It's just the reality of it. And the fact that you need to bring on a Emily Callahan to provide legitimacy for the suffering of Palestinians is a problem with our society.
Yeah, just to preface this, Hamza of ArabOrganizing.org put it this way, notice how she's not asked to condemn Hamas, something to consider. A hard truth that I've had to deal with is that it doesn't matter how educated I am or whether I can prove my humanity. To white America, the message can only get through by someone that doesn't look like me. Yeah, and that doesn't mean people shouldn't.
But again, at the very least, they're doing this, which is important. And if, you don't go, change doesn't happen overnight. And if there needs to be this sort of midwifery, as it were, of acknowledging that Palestinians are actually human beings and suffer like other people suffer, and love their children, then so be it. But here is Emily Callahan.
Leave us, and they said, "You are family too, and we're not going anywhere."
All right, go back a little bit here, because they're talking about. She's talking about how she was led out of the country by their local support staff, and the people that were being led out of the country from Doctors Without Borders were saying, leave us so you can be safe. Go ahead. That's where we'll pick up the story.
And at that point, we had no idea what was coming in the next few days, and they would yell things in Hebrew to see if we were Israeli. They accused our national staff of either being traitors or said, you're pretending to be Arab. We know that you're just pretending to be Arab. Stop lying to us. And our staff had to defend themselves. And we said to them over and over again, you don't have to stay. We understand if you want to leave us. And they said, you are family too, and we're not going anywhere.
Your staff, the Palestinians who work for MSF or Doctors Without Borders, were concerned about your safety.
We would have died within a week without them. They are the only reason we are alive.
It's incredible that this took so long to get Americans, sick people, start to move through that Rafah border crossing. It's inexplicable.
And we were desperate. We did a calorie count at one point based on our supplies and figured out that if all of us, there's 50 people with us living in a parking lot now, only ate 700 calories a day. If that's all we had 2 days of food left, and that's it. And our national staff took off. We had no cell service at that point, so we had no idea what had happened to them. There's bombs going off all around us because there's no safe place in Gaza.
Even getting through that Rafah border crossing, what was that like?
They didn't leave our side for a second.
The national staff.
The national
because
staff.
They feared for your safety, even at the border crossing.
They made sure they were standing between us and desperate people. They made sure that they were talking to every official that they could find, trying to push us through, trying to get us on the bus, trying to get us out. And we're standing there and we're watching these incredible men who have sacrificed everything for us, who have sacrificed time with their families, their own physical safety, their own water supply they were giving to us. And we're watching them fight to get us across the border, knowing that we were not bringing them with us. And they didn't waver. Ibrahim was right in the front with our passports, fighting so hard to get us on. And we get to Arish that night and find out his parents are dead. They were losing family members and friends.
You said if it wasn't for your national staff, you think you would have been killed by people who were just desperate.
We either would have starved to death or run out of water. They were the ones that negotiated all of that. Gaza's a small city, so everyone knows everyone, and they would call in favors and call their friends and say, who do you know that has food? Who do you know that's open? Where can we get this? And they would drive all over the place to find water. And when we ran out of bottled water in Gaza, they were the ones that were able to figure out that the water truck was coming here at these times, and oh, I know this guy has a grocery store and they still have power sometimes. I think I can probably get something from them. Like when I say we would have starved to death without them, I'm not exaggerating. And in the moments of absolute desperation of civilians, they were steadfast and calm and just talked to them and said, these people are also in the same boat that you are. They have no supplies. They also have no food and water. They are also sleeping outside on the concrete, and did it in such a beautiful way that they were able to talk them down with love and kindness. There was no violence in their heart, and it calmed everyone around them down as well.
Would you go back to Gaza?
In a heartbeat. In an absolute heartbeat. My heart is in Gaza. It will stay in Gaza. The Palestinian people that I worked with, both our national staff in the office as well as my staff at Indonesia Hospital, were some of the most incredible people I've ever met in my life. When everything went off and we got the notice to move south of Wadi Gaza, I was texting my nurses at Indonesia Hospital, and I said, we lost a nurse weekend one. He was killed when the ambulance outside the hospital was blown up. And I was texting them when we got the evacuation orders, and I said, did any of you move south? Did any of you get out? Like, are any of you coming down this way? And the only answer I got was, this is our community. This is our family. These are our friends. If they're going to kill us, we're going to die saving as many people as we can. And I said, if I can ever have an ounce of the heart that you have, I will die a happy person. They were incredible. I would like to send out a reminder that there are civilians seeking shelter there, and that my doctors and nurses didn't leave out of loyalty to their community. And I know that there is an idea being pushed right now that anyone that stayed behind is going to be considered some kind of a threat. And I want to remind people that the people that stayed behind are heroes. The people that stayed behind are they know they're going to die, and they're choosing to stay behind anyway.
You're talking about doctors, nurses in the hospital.
I wake up every morning and I send out a text message and I ask, are you alive? And every night before I go to sleep, I send another message and says, are you alive?
Well, Kelly, thank you so much for your time.
Thank you.
I mean, I don't know how, and that is, some of the less disturbing images that you can see, but this type of like talk would make more sense if she was talking about some type of like natural phenomena. Like knowing that this tsunami was coming, they stayed to save people, knowing that this hurricane was coming, in this area where there was famine, or they went into an area where there was, some type of a rampant disease.
What we can expect from climate change over the next century.
Yeah, whatever the context is. You can imagine her saying this. They're incredibly brave people. They're staying there in light of this thing that was coming at them that no one has control over. But then when you realize it is something that we do have control over as humans, I should say, and that there are people who are actively encouraging and cheering this, and that our tax dollars, sort of banal as that is in some way supporting this, and that our government is in every way not attempting or leveraging what they have, throwing everything in their quiver to stop this. It becomes almost like unimaginable. I mean, it's just amazing. I mean, amazingly horrific that we sit here and I am happy that we don't have to I don't envy someone like Anderson Cooper. I mean, I don't know him personally at all. I have no idea what the guy is like, but I got to imagine it's a little bit difficult to be sitting there next to that person, having you tell that story, and then have to bring on a communications person from the IDF who's going to say,
look at this CGI video of tunnels underneath it that
right.
were made.
We definitely killed a terrorist. We don't know who, but that ambulance, we undoubtedly killed the terrorist. And then just have to sit there as part of your job. And then, and you could say, well, he doesn't have to sit there. He could quit and walk away from it. But, I mean, that's an option, I guess. But who knows? The next guy to fill his seat may not have even that doctor on or that nurse on. I don't know. I'm not justifying any of that. I'm just saying, I don't know how your mind sort of wraps itself around that. I wouldn't be able to do it. I wouldn't be able to have, I mean, I'll have somebody on who wants to sort of have a debate or a discussion about this stuff. And certainly, sort of the right wingers who I also see some value in sort of dislodging their audience from them. But I don't know. NJ Mailman shouts out to the Monmouth County Democrats for not nominating candidates for 2 elections in my county, really leaving it all on the field. I mean, that's the thing that is,
That's the best argument for getting involved in the Democratic Party is they are asleep at the wheel in so many places that you can walk into a position where you can create a problem for the part of the party that doesn't share your politics.
And it's also problematic in that the party apparatus, any apparatus gets ossified. It just does. I don't care what it is. Sir Rips a lot. Pennsylvania voter here. It's my birthday. Solid election results are all I could have asked for. Left is best. John the Strange. Wow, what a night. Glad to see Virginia has awakened Youngkin / Medicaid, and now he's had his hat handed to him. DeSantis should get permission to use the Love Spark of High-Heeled Boys as his campaign song. Do you know that song? By Traffic? The Traffic's pretty good.
What era?
Steve Winwood.
Traffic would have, Steve Winwood came out of it, but it was his band. But they must have been 70s, maybe early 70s.
Late 60s, early 70s.
Yeah. All right, let's get into some of the more fun stuff, shall we? We saved number 10 for you, Matt, but maybe we do that Friday when Emma's here too. Let's listen to Charlie Kirk, who's telling us why he can't get along with certain Republicans. And part of it is because he's like Jesus.
He's already older than Jesus, but you know.
Oh boy, wait a second. Do we know how the youth vote went in this?
I think I have that in my short-term memory that they did not do well in Arizona.
But I'm saying, like, in this way,
well, I think college students at William and Mary, as Aaron Kleinman referred to, came out in droves, and I don't believe they were coming out in droves to vote
in
for
Virginia
Republican
and
candidates.
Pennsylvania.
Right.
Is my understanding. Now
the entire legislative assembly and Senate in Virginia is blue. And
do they not have this saying on the right? You had one job.
Yeah.
Because how
did
Charlie Kirk become so incredibly wealthy? Because remember when I debated him in 2017 or 2018?
Yeah.
I had his tax form was released, and I actually had it with me. And I remember at the time it said he was making like $50,000 or $70,000 a year or something like that. The 301, what he was getting paid. Now there was a lot of sort of fishy stuff that maybe he was soaking up, but now the guy supposedly, like the last thing I read, he was like making, I don't know, $1.5 million a year or something like that. He's got like a mansion.
Must be nice.
It must be nice, particularly when, like, you know, your benefactors die off so they can't see how poorly you've done.
COVID kills your benefactor.
Exactly. Sorry, man. Sorry you didn't stick around to see the results of the election that I completely bungled. But here he is, Charlie Kirk.
Yet Adam Kinzinger will not leave. Even though we're trying to kick him out, even though we tell him there's no place for it, because he's an insurgent. He is there as an infiltrator. And one of the positives of the Trump movement is that we finally can take the masks off of these pretenders to reveal the people within the Republican Party that are not one of us. And what I find hilarious is sometimes people say, but Charlie, why can't we just unify with the Adam Kinzinger types? Why don't you ask them that question? Why don't you ask Adam Kinzinger why he can't unify with his voters? The Republican Party is changing for the better. The ideas are resonating more and more with our voters. We're becoming far more skeptical of nation building abroad. We finally are waking up to the fact that the southern border matters more than the border of Ukraine. When people say, Charlie, why can't you get along with Adam Kinzinger? It would be like asking Jesus why he can't unify with Judas. Hey, Julius Caesar, can you get along with Brutus or Cassius?
Pause it for 1 second. Somebody help me out here. Why can't Charlie Kirk get along with Adam Kinzinger? What? Yeah. Why can't he get along with him? Is like asking Jesus to get along with Judas. So Kinzinger in this, right? Kinzinger or whatever his name is, he's Judas. So wait, who is Charlie Kirk in this?
Yeah, I mean, in both the cases of
you can say that on mic.
I think Charlie Kirk is Jesus in this.
Yeah, I think you're right.
I mean, even
but wait a second. if Adam Kinzinger is Brutus, who is Charlie Kirk in this analogy?
Julius Caesar.
But again, like whether he's
Caesar?
Jesus, both Jesus and Julius Caesar were like too trusting of the people who ultimately stabbed them in the back. They weren't at arm's length from them, and then they eventually they weren't like, oh, it's beef for eternity.
Yeah,
now.
we have to expel them.
Sorry,
from the
Brutus,
ranks.
but yeah, you're not on the team anymore. No, it was I trusted you, and then you stabbed me in the back.
Right.
Yeah, somebody YouTube chat just said Jesus did get along with Judas. Yeah.
Right. Yeah, that was the whole thing.
That's how he had the opportunity to, yeah, okay. All right, but maybe he just wants to put himself in that position. But let's go back. Let's see other analogies to explain this. Oh, and incidentally, really unfortunate thing for him to say days before another election where Republicans have it handed to them. Yeah. But, okay.
Charlie, why can't you get along with Adam Kinzinger? It would be like asking Jesus why he can't unify with Judas. Hey, Julius Caesar, can you get along with Brutus? Or Cassius? There's only so many times you could be knifed in the back by these people. The John McCain,
Wait a
Adam
second,
Kinzinger.
knifed in the back. I feel like there's a German word for that.
I have to look that up again. Yeah.
What is it? Schurtewälder or something? I don't know. But this is, it is, I mean, to be honest, and this is not hyperbole. I know that.
Oh, yeah, Dolchstoßlegende.
Yeah. What was that term? Where you found that term? Tell me in the context in which that term sort of got widely used.
That's in the rise of Nazi Germany post 1918.
Oh, is that right?
Yeah.
Oh, interesting. Okay. And who are they talking about? They were talking about the other Germans, right? Who had.
Yeah, well, especially Jews and socialists.
Okay. I thought I had. It struck me as somewhat familiar.
There's only so many times you could be knifed in the back by these people. The John McCain, Adam Kinzinger, Liz Cheney, Mitt Romney, Paul Ryan types. These people are actively attempting and trying to destroy us and the movements we care about.
I don't want to be pedantic, but if John McCain is actively attempting to do anything right now, that's a story in and of itself, because he's been dead for multiple years now.
Yeah, McCain is one of our best sort of insider splinter cells. Ever since we had him go, actually, he wasn't taken hostage in Vietnam. That was actually his instruction as a communist insider.
What's amazing, too, about this is that Charlie Kirk is talking about, as far as I know, 4 people, one of whom's dead. The other 3 are out of office. Yeah, right. Paul Ryan's been out of office for like 4 or 5 years. Cheney's out of office. Kinzinger is out of office. John McCain,
out of office,
more or less. So what is he talking about? Go ahead.
By these people, the John McCain, Adam Kinzinger, Liz Cheney, Mitt Romney,
Retiring.
Paul Ryan types.
Retiring.
These people are actively attempting and trying to destroy us and the movements we care about. And then people say, well, why can't you work with people who hate you and sabotage you and lie about you and try to throw you in prison?
What? Wow.
Must be a Jan 6 reference. So, you know, TPUSA or whatever their campus, they sent a lot of buses there, and Charlie wants to distance himself from that.
Exactly. Those other people they're trying to throw in jail, they wouldn't try and throw me in jail because I had nothing to do with it. I love how he calls it the Trump movement now instead of the Republican Party.
Yeah.
But let's be honest, it's the Republican Party. Back in the day, we didn't call them Judas to my Jesus or Brutus to my Caesar. We just called them rhinos. But, you know, time moves on. It's what the kids are doing now. Apparently.
Hey, Jesus, why can't you get along with Judas? You're acting really messed up towards him lately. You're being so aloof to Judas.
Bob Carmody wants to know who's Pontius Pilate in this scenario. Left is best. YouTube chat says hi. Hello, YouTube chat. All right, let's do. There was an attempt, it seems to me, for part of the IDW to get away from Dave Rubin because they realized that Dave Rubin was really embarrassing them. And Sam Harris really started to distance himself from Dave Rubin. And I think Eric Weinstein was also trying to distance himself from Dave Rubin, but then he got distanced from Sam Harris because of all the COVID stuff. And now, apparently, what the plan is to try and get the IDW back together by putting them in these sensory deprivation tanks and making them just stare at each other and talk. And let's tune in to see how that's going.
I also should note, they forgot to turn Dave Rubin's microphone on, so all the audio will be coming from Eric Weinstein's.
Is that right?
Yes.
Well, I was looking at that. It looks like it's so far away from him. What is this? This is the Rubin report? And like, what's going on with Rubin? Like,
I'm not sure
well,
what's...
all right, let's play it first, and then we'll talk about this, because something's going on with Rubin.
Like in exile.
He's also looks like he's running for Congress now.
We had dinner last night. You're, I would say, on it when it comes to the state of the world right now, and your concerns are the things that I think everyone is concerned about right now. I hand you that.
Really appreciate it. Don't know what to do exactly. You know, one of the things that came out of the discussion last night is that I don't think we are where we think we are.
Pause it for 1 second. And obviously, folks will know, like, this is not a function of our audio. They decided to do this in a cave and to record it with apparently like like the left side of a
well, there's two microphones
an
there.
ear pod.
Yeah.
I don't even think they're using either microphone. It looks like it sounds like it's recorded off someone's computer. But putting that aside, I love the incisive questions that Dave Rubin has. We had dinner and the world's messed up. Go.
Yeah, it is like, we had a great dinner last night and we had this amazing conversation. Can we give them a little bit of a glimpse of what we were talking about?
It's as if someone else we have tortured with having to sit with us at dinner. Us insufferable people.
You know, one of the things that came out of the discussion last night is that I don't think we are where we think we are. I give the analogy that if you have a river that has always been flowing, and 1 year you have unseasonably cold temperatures, it freezes over. People think they can do what they've always done. They can dive off the rock into the river, and if they're going to hit ice 1 year, and they realize that you have to change your behavior when there's a phase change. I think that many of the recourses that we've thought about, free markets, free speech, democracy, have to be rethought if they become gamed. And I think one of the things that we're experiencing is we don't know whether to roll back to a previous version of ourselves, which would be like trying to find safe mode on a computer where the operating system has become corrupted, or whether we need to go forward for things that aren't capitalism or communism, aren't democracy, because in fact there's been a phase change in our world. And I think what we're doing is avoiding the question of, you know, for example, if Hamas is a democratically elected government and it engages in pure terror, is democracy what we think it is? Does free speech operate the same way if you have armies of bots that can confuse people into thinking that there's a mass of people who believe something, which there isn't on day one, but by virtue of the power of persuasion and social coercion, people are afraid to hold simple, decent perspectives, because every time they do it, they're torn apart by what seems to be 10,000 accounts telling them that they're an idiot, that they're cringeworthy, that they're over, that they're barbarous. And I
pause it for 1 second. Now, obviously, guess what? Guess what? Eric's been getting on his social media lately.
Yeah.
But this is fascinating. I mean, you can see where he's going here, folks. And there's obviously, whenever Eric Weinstein says anything, there's always a much easier, less sort of like convoluted, less obscure way of saying it. And I'll say it in a moment. And I can say everything he's been saying in one sentence. But let's let him continue so that you can watch this guy. Well, I'm not going to say that because that's inappropriate, but this guy really, really enjoys hearing him speak. And I say this as someone who obviously enjoys hearing himself speak because that's what I do professionally. But this guy really loves it. I mean, this guy, like, there's some strange stuff happening back at the Weinstein home when the day is over, the big mirror comes out, and some weird things happen. I'm quite convinced. But go ahead.
Every time they do it, they're torn apart by what seems to be 10,000 accounts telling them that they're an idiot, that they're cringeworthy, that they're over, that they're barbarous. And I watched this happen to you. You're one of the.
You've seen my Twitter account, my God.
Well, that's the thing, right? And I saw the repetition through what psychologists would call perseveration, where they would just hit you with the same phrases over and over again. And it causes people to move away from you because we have evolutionary programs. So I think one of the things that I believe is that, if I think about the early work you and I did together, we were talking about fake news and what was coming. It was pretty prophetic. So that stuff held up pretty
definitely.
well. You're on the short list of people that I would say that interviews actually do stand up, and we're ballpark
right back at you.
Or let's say directionally right about where this was going to go.
Sure.
Unfortunately, we're sort of in the prequel version of Star Wars now when Yoda says, what failed we have. That seems like in some respects.
Well, and somebody tried to execute Order 66, and so the Jedi, were under a lot of pressure. But one of the things that I really appreciate is the number of people who've had their relationships strained by the relentless attack we've all been under. You used to be a liberal and a lefty. I'm still in that position. And the fact is that we're still talking.
We're still here, man.
Well, and a large number of us never stop talking to each other. Some people have stopped talking to us.
Pause it for a second. Can you speed this up so we can get to the part where they start to manually pleasure each other? Where they were going, where Eric was going, and I know we if it circles back before they got on this sort of like literally
pity party.
It was a pity party, but then it quickly, as it always does, it's like it just vacillates between pity and self-congratulations. Like literally, it's watching two cats sort of like lick each other clean on some level. But Weinstein is basically saying we need to ask ourselves, should we have some form of Caesar? Yes. That's where he's going, right? When he's saying like democracy is problematic.
Free speech is problematic
Free speech is problematic. The free market is problematic. Now, of course, the free market is never
That's what Bud Light did.
And exactly. I mean, what he's saying is like, I don't like the idea that it's becoming clear the free market was always a fraud anyways. And my boss, Peter Thiel, can no longer manipulate things in the way in the darkness in the way that he used to.
Yeah.
And so he's saying that we need a Caesar. Now, I am sure it is just a coincidence that we have seen writing after writing coming now from the right and the Trump movement of, do we need a Caesar? This is what's happening. Like, this is what's, whether it's the Heritage Foundation putting out their 2025 plan, whether it's literally intellectual conservatives who are writing pieces. Do we need a Caesar? And I will also suggest this. There is a long tradition amongst Republicans of being Straussians. Cheney et al. Their whole theory about the unitary executive, that the powers of the presidency should be much more strong relative to the other branches of government. This is out there. It just gets recycled in different ways. And Trump just becomes like the more charismatic version of this. And so it makes it easy. But let's see where he's going with this. We skip ahead here, right? Is that right?
Yeah.
Okay.
The mass killer shouted a religious slogan in a foreign language, no motive is known. It's time to end this once and for all. And what we're doing is we're playing with ultimate fire. We have to worry about Russia, who in some sense we may have wronged, but they are still butchers and very, very dangerous. China has been playing the long game. I have the ultimate respect for how disciplined they've been, but we have to realize what they really present. India, Pakistan remains incredibly potent. Iran and Israel are poised for something, and people have to realize you've never seen a hydrogen bomb used in anger. The first time it happens will be like 9/11 raised to the 1,000th power. This was an anomaly, and we squandered the last bit of this. We were supposed to use the post-World War II peace to figure out how to stabilize this place. Mm-hmm. And we failed. We talked about peace dividends. We worried more about getting swimming pools and luxury automobiles.
Is that just the nature of human reality? You go through these hard times, you build good things, the good people become weak, and
there's this fourth turning thing, and the problem is I have a different version of it, which is hard times make strong men make nuclear weapons in good times make weak men and nuclear weapons make end times, and people have to stop this fourth turning.
Oh my God.
Okay, so just on again, we'll do this.
He's explaining why he finally convinced Peter Thiel to allow him into the bunker in New Zealand is basically what it is.
This is where they take another run at this thesis that basically Dave Rubin wants permission to not be free speech anymore.
Oh, is that what's going on?
Yeah.
I see.
Because all of the protests that are going on.
Dave Rubin's really on a journey.
He is, yeah.
Weak men and nuclear weapons make end times, and people have to stop this fourth turning nonsense.
Okay, so just on again, we'll do this.
I'm talking as fast as I can.
You'll come to Miami. We'll do a proper one, or we'll do it on Skype in the meantime. But I just want to. I'm really trying to nail down. I'm trying to nail down the speech component of this. So when you tell me that the river to the sea is a genocidal chant.
Yep.
In Florida, DeSantis has passed laws. We ban some of these protests because he's talking about material support.
And he makes us uncomfortable by banning speech.
However, it's material support, but yes, people are arguing that he's banning speech.
My point is that he's recognized
this is where
the phase transition.
Right. So how do we encourage that while being respectful of the ideas and ideals that we care about? How do we make sure that we have the proper tools, which is what he's done, to export to the rest of the country and maybe the world?
It has to do with the fact that you need an interpretation of the world that allows you not to have a suicide pact. Democracy is not a suicide pact. Free speech is not a suicide pact.
We have returned to September 12th,
Yep.
ladies and gentlemen. It's December 12th all over again, and just happens to arrive coincidentally as Israel is bombing Palestinians. This is what a classical liberal is, right? One who is talking about, we just need the tools to recognize that our society, they're so principled, these guys, right? Yeah. I almost miss the days when it was like all about principle. They literally branded themselves as being outsiders, not allowed to have their discourse in the real web. They could only be in the dark web and the pages of the New York Times. Those are the only two places that we're allowed to speak our truth because we have become so censorious. But then 3 or 4 years later, I realized I've now adjusted to see that the river has frozen. And because the river has frozen, it's okay. It's okay that we can just protect our speech. This is why, all of that stuff was always about, hey, wait a second, our speech isn't privileged anymore.
Yep.
We can't get away saying bomb all Muslims and then get a promotion based on that. Now, you still can in a lot of spaces in this world and this country. But it's just fascinating. And it's also, they are so intoxicated by whatever's coming out of their mouths that they show no shame in how they have sort of like completely thrown. And really it just like, I don't know that Dave Rubin in his mind, or Eric Weinstein for that matter, in their mind are like, here's my plan and here's how I'm going to stay relevant and try and position myself so that I can still have some relevance and by that make money or whatever it is. But instinctively, they flow like water going down a hill. It's like they're like like they just find the path where they get the most sort of like feedback that's helpful or attention or prestige or whatever it is that they think is there, and they follow that path. I mean, they have an ideology that, of course, is right-wing and is, I think, fundamentally supremacist
Well, what's interesting with Rubin here specifically is you saw it with the DeSantis thing, which is that he is in bed with these politicians in a way that even Eric isn't. So he has to defend DeSantis's thing. And so Eric's like, okay, that's a phase transition. We can suppress speech now. But also Bibi Netanyahu's been on Rubin Report. And so later in this clip, I'm not sure if I think it may be a little bit after this, Weinstein wants to critique Bibi and like the right wing of the Israeli government. And Rubin's like, well, they've been doing a great job. I don't know why you want to criticize them. It's interesting.
All right, let's get to that. I don't want to spend too much more time on this, but it's just interesting because, and I'll tell you the point of this. It's, because I don't even know if Dave Rubin has a show anymore. He's doing it, is doing it out of a closet, which is also sort of funny insofar as like that may be a requirement for him to stay on the Blaze if he's still on the Blaze, to do a show in this closet. But Eric Weinstein, like the only point of like talking about these people is to just sort of get a sense of where some of these right-wing talking points are headed. And neither one of these guys are as relevant as they used to be because they don't have the mouthpieces, in the Times like they had, and they've disassociated themselves from Sam Harris because of all the COVID stuff. To some extent, they're trying to bring the band back together because they see the whole war of civilizations that we had hopefully passed through when, Barack Obama was no longer our Muslim socialist president. But they're trying to bring it back. But I don't know if it's going to work. But it is relevant to hear.
Well, because they have to pretend like Tucker Carlson doesn't exist because of his isolationist position. Like, and Rubin did address that a little bit with Andrew Klavan, and they are all like, maybe Tucker's not saying what we think he's saying, and maybe we all agree. But that's why they're doing this in the soundproof room, because they could just pretend like it's just campus activists. And stuff
right,
like that.
Of course.
About the invasion of the beaches of Normandy. To just go on social media and say, hey, huge troop buildup. If that were happening today, we would have to restrict. So the idea is we need to let people in on how a mature society actually handled these things over time.
It is the easiest way for people that are maybe not clear about all this to see how for years, guys like us were going to college campuses and being called Nazis and had to have security and been protested and microaggressions and all the rest of it. And then the second this thing happens with Israel, suddenly universities are defending the call to genocide. Like, to me, that's like a very good example of how we can show people, boy, this was only about controlling you. Nothing.
Well, look, but there were also issues where people are confused because Israel has chosen to do things that are really not comfortable and maybe not right. No nation has ever only behaved ethically. Israel's no exception.
I don't know that any nation has behaved more ethically in this.
But
I get your metaphor.
And so my point is that there's two basic ways to do this. There's
Pause it. Okay, they get to the one place that could possibly be interesting and relevant to anything that's going on in the world, which is Israel acting ethically here? And Weinstein clearly has some questions about that. Good for him. that means that he has like some semblance of like humanity that he can only deny with, like a wind's kiss worth of pushback. And he immediately like, oh, okay, we're not supposed to go there. Okay. And of course, Ruben is like, we're on my show, so you've got to subscribe to my.
I'm going to hear about this if you don't walk that back a little bit.
Right.
Conservative way, which is you say something simple like, no nation has behaved more ethically given the difficult situation that Israel has always been in at an existential level. So that makes good sense to me. Then there's the liberal way of doing it, which is that you have a paragraph that goes on for, 12 pages with lots of footnotes and pointers and references and hyperlinks.
It's a slow delay of the beheading. You have to read a lot.
Right. Like, I'm not saying this and I'm not saying that. So I'm in the camp.
Which is exactly what they've been doing.
And then the conservatives basically say, we don't have time for this. Here's the simple thing. It's not quite true, but it's true enough. It's like, it's not true that there are only two genders, but it's true enough. And so, we're divided. I'm going to talk about, no, there's persistent Mullerian duck syndrome, and you have to understand about developmental identities. Yeah. That divide, we've got to bridge it. Because
even with 5-hour podcasts, it starts getting.
I understand.
Yeah, you get the point.
Well, I look to my Muslim brothers and cousins. They just say PBUH. They don't say, in the name of Allah, the most compassionate and merciful, and Muhammad is only peace be upon him. They PBUH, right? Like, let's get to the chase.
Right. I think we have to stop. But we just.
Yeah, because I didn't, we were talking such nonsense, I can't even have a clue as to what we've been talking about. And we might stumble upon something that actually has some type of relevance in terms of like the news today, which is like
assessing a nation state's active bombing campaign.
Right.
Or maybe we just talk about this crazy
But isn't
stuff.
it sort of like in Return of the Jedi?
Failed we have.
Oh boy. All right, let's. Oh, geez.
Yeah.
Why didn't you tell me?
Well, we were having fun.
No, this is.
We're doing the debate coverage tonight.
This happened last time too.
Oh shit! I gotta go too because I gotta go to the doctor. I gotta run. All right, 3 more and then we're out of here. Brooklyn Best. Are we feeling good or bad about the elections? Are the results this year forecasting what to expect in next year's election? Left is best. Feeling good about the elections. You don't know how much you can forecast from it, but to the extent that you were going to forecast, it would be positive. But
the current's good. There's some headwinds though.
Texas left. Texas Governor Abbott calling a 4th special session to pass school vouchers and cannot get any movement on it. Makes me hopeful this state has some hope. Although in Texas, Brad Benson, a guy who was arrested for possession of child abuse material, missed a city council runoff by just like 16 votes. And the final IM of the day. Plastic Oceans. What's up, MR Crew? Finally became a new member last week. Thank you for that. I've been a regular listener since 2020. R.I.P. Michael Brooks. Keep up the good work in these trying times. I must say, I don't put much stock in the low poll numbers for Biden at this stage. Do you think the narrative changes after last night's election results? Yes, it will change for 2 days. And then the day 3 from now, the narrative will revert. The bottom line is you can only tell so much. It's just to assuage our antsiness or non-antsiness. Bradley, Matt, Emma, and Absentia, good job today. We will see you tonight sometime between 7:50 and 8 p.m. for our live coverage of the 4th, not final. It's a 3rd and not final. 3rd and not final 5-person debate, not featuring, of course, missing this debate is the massive presence of Doug Burgum. So he won't be there tonight, but we will. See
There
you.
go the ratings.
See you then.
It might take all the strength I got to get to where I want, but I know somehow I'm gonna get there. I wasn't looking when I just got caught between the truth and the light bar. But finding out won't make me feel any better. Yeah, I know the clock is ticking, but the meds are gonna kick in.